On January 27, 2011, this man, a man known as El Shahid, was kidnapped by police in Cairo, Egypt. Interestingly enough, most did not know this man as El Shahid. To most of his friends, co-workers, and other citizens of Egypt, he is called WaelGhonim. Ghonim was kidnapped by police that evening during a protest he helped organize through the internet. Ghonim, an employee at Google since 2008, is an internet enthusiast. Though successfully creating websites during the day, Ghonim spent his evenings organizing protests and making censored news available to the public. Egypt was facing a time of immense corruption that had been growing for decades. Under the fourth president of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, censorship was implemented, citizen rights were diminishing, and police power was increasing. The government made it nearly impossible for protesters to organize, though the majority desired the corrupt Mubarak to step down. Working as an employee at Google, Ghonim came to realize how the internet could be used as a substantial weapon against the corrupt governmental regime of Mubarak. His interest in political activism grew one day in June 2010, when news spread that a young Egyptian man, Khaled Said, had been violently beaten to death by the police. This event deeply struck Ghonim, who took it upon himself to create the Facebook page We Are All Khaled Said. The website spurred Ghonim's famous activist movement and his adoption of the name El Shahid. El Shahid, meaning the martyr, was the new face of the activist movement and was used to protect both Ghonim's identity and the mission of his website. In Ghonim's reasoning, the protests did not necessarily have a real leader, so the protests could always continue even if he were captured or hurt. My purpose, Ghonim said, is to increase the bond between the people and the group through my unknown personality. This way we create an army of volunteers. In his unknown personality, the movement may have an invisible leader that gives protesters hope. Hope is exactly what the Egyptian people have been searching for over the decades. Corruption is no stranger to Egyptians, and under Mubarak, it has certainly escalated the need for a revolution. President for nearly 30 years, Mubarak's corruption was extremely serious. The overwhelming lack of free speech and free elections kept Mubarak in office, and under Mubarak, activists were imprisoned and convicted without trials. Also under Mubarak, emergency law was enacted. This allows police power to be extended, constitutional rights of citizens to be diminished, the legalization of censorship, and the possibility to detain any person for any amount of time without a trial. Ghonim's activist group aimed to overthrow the corrupt Mubarak and rid the emergency law. They also wanted to end police brutality and implement fair democratic elections. Ghonim's online group was a rallying point for protesters. The rallying came to a peak on January 25, 2011, when Ghonim invited thousands to protest on Egypt's National Police Day through Facebook. Ghonim himself traveled to be a part of this protest, which took place in Tahrir Square in Cairo. He protested next to friends who knew him only as WaelGhonim, not as the invisible leader of this incredible movement. 2 nights later, Ghonim disappeared. Kidnapped by police, Ghonim feared mostly that his website would be shut down if his passwords were to be discovered. Luckily, Ghonim had implemented many safety precautions to keep El Shahid alive, even if he was not. Because of these plans, the website and the protest continued on. WaelGhonim was released from his detention on February 7, 2011, about 2 weeks after being kidnapped. Only days later, February 11th, President Hosni Mubarak resigned. On February 13th, it was announced that the Constitution would be suspended and the Houses of Parliament would be dissolved for 6 months while the military ruled and elections were set up. WaelGhonim voted last year for the first time at age 31. Unfortunately, the emergency law is still in play. Amid continued promises of ending this law, Egyptians aren't getting the results they hoped for through their protests. His role as a nonviolent leader pushed Egyptians into a revolution and promoted much-needed citizen rights. Despite its advances, Egypt still has a long road ahead of it to peace and prosperity as this revolution continues.